What's up, everyone? It's Endymion, and today I want to talk about yet another company pulling the wokeness card when it comes to selling their products. Today, let's talk about Dove, who has decided to create an advertisement targeted at female representation in video games. Instead of explaining the ad, I think it's better if I just show you it, so here, watch. There's a lot of moronic virtue signaling going on here, with Dove throwing their hat into the pile of woke misfires in order to score those precious ESG points. How will this help us sell soap? Soap? Besides the ad you just saw, Dove will also work with Roblox of all things to make an exclusive game centered around a school for kids with superpowers that's under siege by a group of rogue students spreading negativity, and a real beauty in games training program, an online course designed to educate developers, creators, and artists about beauty and diversity in gaming. So these two things neither sound interesting, unique, or really even worth existing. But then again, I could say the same thing about basically anything virtue signaling related. Dove's campaign explained, and I quote, "Gamers want true-to-life diversity even in the fantasy realm of gaming. But there's work to be done on female representation in video games, especially when it comes to the creation of avatars. Featuring models developed in partnership with the Center for Appearance Research, the Dove Self-Esteem Project, and industry experts, the course will help teach creators how to avoid unconscious bias across the stages of avatar and character development, giving female players an opportunity to redefine how they are represented across the gaming space." End quote. Bounding into Comics pointed out that people like Christopher J. Ferguson has already debunked a lot of the things Dove's agenda is pushing. Ferguson has largely already proven that things like video games do not in any way spark violent behavior, but instead these systemic problems are more tied to things like societal constructs. A good example would be people who didn't have good upbringings, were surrounded by violence and drugs and so on, are more likely to cause harm to others. And people who play things like Cory in the House on Nintendo DS are way less likely to cause harm because video games are just video games. Also, Cory in the House on Nintendo DS is amazing. Ferguson also said that sexualization in games was neither related to well-being, body dissatisfaction, nor sexism, misogyny in any way. So basically, this entire Dove ad is another swing and a miss by woke activists trying to score internet brownie points with people who don't need their help in the first place. Ferguson spoke on violence in video games with, and I quote, "Better designed studies and those that showed less evidence for researcher expectancy effects for sexism misogyny outcomes tended to find less evidence for effects. As appears commonly in other realms of media effects, the evidence is weak that sexualized games influence player attitudes and behavior. Overall, the moral panic over video games and sexualization is pretty much following the paint-by-numbers pattern of the video games violence debate. Lots of hyperbole and moral outrage, but very little evidence that video games are causing any harm to either male or female players. As a purely public health issue, this doesn't appear to be much of a concern at all. That doesn't mean people can't advocate for better representation of females in games. They just need to be cautious not to make claims of harm that can be easily debunked, thereby calling into question what might otherwise be reasonable advocacy goals." End quote. I also find it funny how Dove believes people want to see things like oversized digital avatars in video games more. It's not like these kinds of avatars aren't capable of existing, since games like Saints Row or Tekken exist, and you can create all sorts of abominations in those games with their creators. The real reason why we don't see overweight people in heroic roles is very simple, and I'll likely piss off many people by saying this, but I honestly don't care. The reason why we don't see overweight people in heroic roles is because being overweight is bad for you. I know, shocking, dare I say blasphemous of me to say so, but it's true. Being overweight has literally no benefits to your physical or mental health, regardless of what these weirdos who push this nonsense tell you. I know they're video games, but having your character be a fat slob does little for believability even within a virtual space. It's why when you play games like Mass Effect, Commander Shepard is a ripped war hero. It's not because BioWare is fat-phobic, but because someone like Commander Shepard would not be in their position of power or rank if they ate 7 cheeseburgers a day. Characters like Spider-Man would be way less popular if his stomach hanged out of his tights as he zipped around New York City. It's because of these pandering weirdos that these misfires keep happening. After all, when Marvel pushes insane pandering characters like Sunspider, you know it's bad. And for those of you who don't know who that is, let me tell you what Marvel thinks is okay when it comes to representation. Sunspider is a gay paraplegic spider person who webs their wheelchair to their back and shoots webs out of their crutches as their legs swing helplessly through the air as they fight crime. Someone at Marvel was paid money to review this and approve it for mass consumption. My god, it's no wonder why the Japanese manga market is destroying American comics. It's also why characters like Faith never took off very far, because nobody wants to see an overweight person flying around and fighting crime. Look, I get that things like the Dove ad meant well in some capacity. I'll give them some levity with their message that gamers do come in all sizes, but the reason why mankind doesn't worship people who look like this character in this ad is simply because it is not healthy. Want me to prove my point? The next time you see an attractive girl, tell her she reminds you of Lizzo. If she gets mad, then you've proven my point. People love to yassify and cheer on people like that, while deep down we all know that nobody would actually want a physical body like that. Because being fat is terrible for your health, and never mind just your joints buckling under the pressure, your poor heart has to work overtime to even make the simple fact of living even happen to begin with. But like I've always said, if people want more body type representation in games, go ahead, because the market will decide whether concepts like that will keep happening. And the reason why game developers at large don't support multiple body types in their games isn't because they're fat phobic or lazy. When it comes to RPGs, for example, which have multiple armor sets and whatever else, the amount of dev time to make sure that every armor set fits the basic fit body types they use is already hard to do. Now you want them to make the same armor fit skinny, chubby, big, ripped, curvy, fat, and God knows what other body types? The amount of dev time to make this happen would push back most games years in dev time alone to appease these insane wants. Now imagine everything I just said, but now you want little people representation too. Now imagine the dev time to make all the armor fit a curvy little person, a ripped little person, a fat little person. Come on already. How much bending over backwards and appeasing does the world need to do in order to ensure everyone is represented equally? It'll never be achieved because every other day someone on TikTok or Twitter is coming up with new sexualities or disability terms. As for the whole women aren't represented in video games, that's just dumb, since there's been an explosion in female representation in not just games, but every medium across the board. How many shows, movies, and games have the strong female character trope as their hero? I don't need to tell you that this stereotype is the new bald-headed space marine trope from the early 2000s to mid-2010s. You simply cannot and will never satisfy these people. And like I said already, we shouldn't glamorize or normalize being overweight. Why should people who actually care about their health need to validate those whose lifestyle is just consuming things in excess? And it's funny how companies always say women are underrepresented, but never see a problem with how men are represented in media. Not every guy out there is a ripped Greek god like Kratos. And I don't see any articles where some woke journalist is complaining because Sony is sexualizing Kratos because he doesn't have his shirt on. You want to know why Kratos is ripped and shirtless? Because it's cool. His beard is awesome. So is his axe and his blades. Dudes just don't care at all. I don't look at somebody like Bayek in Assassin's Creed or Snake in Metal Gear and go, oh, this is unrealistic. How dare game devs portray their leading men in video games who do amazing physical feats as individuals who realistically look like they can actually do the things they do? It's all so backwards and stupid. If we listen to morons like the people at Dove, then we should transform things like Dragon Ball and make Brawly into a fat non-binary person so those people feel seen. But thankfully Japan and Akira Toriyama won't do that because it's stupid and people like to see strong individuals in media. We shouldn't glorify things that don't take any effort to achieve. Being overweight is not an achievement, it's the result of a lack of discipline and control. Showing a plus-size woman with a double chin running into battle with a sword doesn't do anything for video games. Or women. It just proves that these companies and the marketing managers behind them don't understand their audiences. And they are just looking for any way they can to score some brownie points and that sweet ESG score increase. The market will decide if we see more things like this, the same way public interest and spending will decide what kind of products get made in the future. So if there's no demand, then those concepts die off. So for any developer out there who wants to make a AAA action-adventure game where you play as a 200-pound woman climbing a mountain or whatever, I say go ahead and let them do it. Because they'll just learn the hard way that when you pander to going woke, you'll just end up becoming broke. Dove's marketing has failed women and companies just need to stop pandering like this all the time. Just make your product, know your audience, sell the product, and keep your politics out of your customers' faces. Unless you want to become the next Bud Light, I implore Dove to just shut up and make soap. Anyway, that's all I got for you today. I'm tired. Please like the video, subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the next one.
Don't ask questions. Just consume product and then get excited for next products.